You know that feeling, right? You're out for a run or maybe just rushing up a flight of stairs and suddenly you're breathing harder and faster. It seems so simple, but have you ever stopped to wonder what's really going on inside your body? It's so much more than just getting air. It's about fueling this incredible journey that powers every single thing you do. So let's dive in and actually follow a single breath from the outside world all the way to the energy inside your muscles. It's going to be a wild ride.
So the whole reason we even bother breathing is energy. And I'm not just talking about energy for running a race. Right now, as you're just sitting here, every single one of the trillions of cells that make you, well, you, is constantly demanding energy. This is the fuel that powers everything, from the tiny muscle contractions that let you blink, to the nerve impulses firing off in your brain, to building new bits of you and even just keeping you warm. All that energy comes from the food we eat. But oxygen, my friends, is the key that unlocks it.
And the official name for this whole energy unlocking process is respiration. Now, this is super important to get straight right from the beginning. When we say respiration in biology, we're not just talking about the physical act of breathing in and out. Nope. Respiration is a chemical process. It's a whole series of tiny reactions happening deep inside your cells that takes the sugar from your food, a molecule called glucose, and uses oxygen to crack it open and release all that amazing energy. That is the ultimate goal of every single breath you take. What's really cool, though, is that our bodies have two different ways to do this, two different energy strategies. Think of it like a marathon versus a sprint. The main system, the one we use almost all the time, is aerobic respiration. That's our marathon runner. It's super efficient, it produces a ton of energy, but, and this is key, it needs oxygen to work. Then you've got anaerobic respiration. This is our sprinter. It's incredibly fast, gives you a burst of power, and doesn't need any oxygen. But it produces way less energy, and you can't keep it up for long. We'll get back to our sprinter in a bit. For now, let's focus on the marathon. Okay, so for our cells to run that super efficient marathon, they need a constant supply of oxygen. That means we've got to get it from the air all around us, deep into our bodies. So let's start the journey. Let's actually follow a single tiny molecule of oxygen as it leaves the outside world and heads into our lungs. So you take a breath in, the air whooshes into your nose and mouth, where it immediately gets warmed up, humidified, and filtered. From there, it travels down your windpipe, the trachea. This main tube then splits into two smaller tubes called the bronchi, with one going to each lung. And these bronchi just keep branching, getting smaller and smaller, like the branches of a tree, into what are called bronchioles, digging deeper and deeper into your lungs until they finally hit their destination, these tiny little air sacs called the alveoli. But hang on, how does this whole system stay clean with all the dust and germs in the air? Well, our airways have this amazing built-in cleaning crew. You've got these special cells called goblet cells that produce a sticky mucus that's perfect for trapping things like dust, pollen, and bacteria. Then, you've got these millions of tiny hair-like things called cilia. They're constantly beating in this rhythmic wave, like a microscopic escalator, pushing that dirty mucus up and out of your lungs. It's an incredible defense system that keeps all that gunk from reaching the really delicate parts. So, our little oxygen molecule has made it all the way to the end of the line. It's arrived at the alveoli. And this, right here, is where the magic really happens. This is the climax of the first part of its journey. It's about to make the most critical leap of all, crossing from the lungs into the bloodstream to fuel the rest of the body. This whole process, this big swap of gases, happens right here in the alveoli, and they are perfectly designed for this job. First off, you have about 300 million of them. That creates a surface area that's absolutely massive. Second, their walls are unbelievably thin. We're talking just one cell thick, so the gases have a super short trip to make. And third, they're wrapped in this incredibly dense web of tiny blood vessels called capillaries. So oxygen, which is packed into the alveoli, just naturally diffuses across those thin walls into the blood. At the exact same time, the waste product, carbon dioxide, which is high in the blood, diffuses out so you can breathe it away. It's a perfect exchange. All right, our oxygen molecule is now officially in the bloodstream, and it's hitched a ride on a special protein called hemoglobin inside our red blood cells. But its journey isn't over yet. Not by a long shot. Now, our circulatory system acts like this massive superhighway, pumping this freshly oxygenated blood out to every single one of the trillions of cells in your body that are just crying out for energy. Okay, so let's pause for a second because this is a really crucial point to get. We need to understand the difference between these two things that are totally connected. Think of it like this. Breathing is the shipping company.
It's the big physical process of picking up the raw material, oxygen, and delivering it to the factory. Cellular respiration, on the other hand, is the factory. It's the microscopic chemical process happening inside every single cell that takes that raw material and uses it to manufacture the final product, energy, in a special molecule called ATP.
And how do we know for sure this is all happening? Well, the proof is in the air we breathe. Just look at the numbers. The air we breathe in is about 21% oxygen, but the air we breathe out, it's down to about 16%. So where did that missing 5% go? It got delivered to our cells. Now look at carbon dioxide. We breathe in a tiny amount, like 0.04%, but we breathe out a whopping 4%. That's a 100 times increase. That is all the waste gas pouring out of our tiny cellular factories. It's pretty amazing evidence.
And this is basically the recipe for what those factories are doing. Don't let the chemical equation freak you out. It's actually pretty simple. The ingredients, or the reactants, are glucose from your food and the oxygen you breathe in. The cell processes them to make the final products. You get carbon dioxide, which you breathe out, you get some water, and most important of all, you get energy in the form of ATP. And that ATP molecule is like the universal energy currency that powers absolutely everything inside the cell.
Okay, so now let's go back to our sprinter. Remember him? What happens when you're going all out, exercising so hard that your heart and lungs just can't deliver oxygen fast enough to your muscles? Your body has a backup plan, but it comes at a price. So when that oxygen supply runs low, your muscle cells frantically switch over to that anaerobic, or without oxygen, pathway we talked about. It gives you that quick, powerful burst of energy you need, but it also creates a byproduct called lactic acid. And the buildup of this stuff is what causes that burning feeling and fatigue in your muscles. Your body has to deal with it, and the amount of extra oxygen you need to clean it all up is called the oxygen debt.
And this is exactly why you're still gasping for air even after you've stopped sprinting and collapsed over the finish line. You are repaying that oxygen debt. All that extra oxygen you're breathing in gets shipped off to the liver, where it's used to break down all that lactic acid into harmless stuff. You can see it right on the graph. Your breathing and heart rate stay high until that debt is fully paid back and the lactic acid is gone.
So let's just quickly run through the whole amazing journey one more time. First, breathing gets oxygen into our lungs so it can be absorbed into the blood at those tiny alveoli. Second, our cells use that oxygen for aerobic respiration, which is the super efficient way to get tons of energy from our food. Third, the waste product from that process, carbon dioxide, gets carried back to the lungs and we breathe it out. And finally, when we really push our limits, anaerobic respiration kicks in for a quick burst of energy, but it leaves us with an oxygen debt that we have to pay back. It's just an incredible, non-stop process, isn't it? From one simple breath of air to this unbelievably complex chain of chemical reactions that keeps you alive, thinking, and moving every second of the day. It really makes you think, what are you going to power with your next breath? Hey, if this explainer helped you understand the incredible power of your own body just a little bit better, do me a favor and hit that like button. And make sure you subscribe to Spotwork Learning for more, because we've got a lot more explainers like this coming your way very soon. Stay tuned. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.